finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize the
Currently, we are watching this presentation at Buchanan, and if you look around the classroom, you might note that we have so much diversity between us. I mean, we are really more diverse today than we were yesterday. But with diversity comes discrimination. And discrimination, what exactly is that? Gunvir and I will be answering that question first with some background information, some history, some historical statistics, racial discrimination today, modern statistics, and finally, the most important thing, proposed solutions to the problem. Let's go over to Gunvir and get some background information on what exactly racial discrimination is.
Racial discrimination is not the same as racism. While racism is prejudice and animosity on account of race, racial discrimination is racism in action. It involves harassing others or treating others unfavorably on account of one's race. It's easy to think of racial discrimination as history. However, even in today's society, racial discrimination has still lingered in various ways, and thousands of people still face racial discrimination on a daily basis. First, let's talk about the history of racial discrimination. From 1619 to 1865, slavery was the biggest method of racial discrimination. As more people moved to North America, the need for labor also increased, and to satisfy this need, many African Americans were enslaved and brought to the US. Not only did these slaves have almost all of their rights taken away, they also had to face and live through many years of cruelty and terrible working environments. They had to face hard punishment, terrible living conditions, and just bad treatment in general. And after hundreds of years of slavery, it was officially made unconstitutional and illegal, but the racial discrimination still didn't stop. In the 1880s, people found new ways to racially discriminate against others. This was segregation, and many schools, colleges, and restaurants were segregated based on the race. Some people even went as far as lynching African Americans because of the smallest things. People just kept finding new ways to discriminate. They also set up poll taxes and literacy tests just to stop African Americans from voting. The thing was, African Americans were not the only people who faced racial discrimination. Later on, in the 1940s, after the incident of Pearl Harbor, Japanese people also faced a lot of discrimination because of Japan's involvement with the incident. Thousands of people were stripped of all their rights and sent to internment camps just for being Japanese. These people had to leave everything they built over the years and go live in a place where they were constantly being watched. And these are just some of the incidents of racial discrimination in the US history. There are multiple more examples if you look into it. And now for some historical statistics. This first graph shows the increase in slavery over the years. And as you can see, as time went on, the percentage of people enslaved kept increasing. The second graph shows the number of lynchings that took place, and it just shows that in a lot of these years, hundreds of African Americans were killed for no reason. This third graph shows the number of Japanese people sent to Japanese internment camps. And as you can see, some of these camps had almost 20,000 people living in just one camp. And it just shows how many people lost everything in their life because of racial discrimination.
Thank you, Gunvir. So now, let's look at a video that really talks about what this historical racism and segregation that Gunvir was talking about really looks like.
Earliest memory I have is our parents and friends and neighbors teaching us about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. We had to make sure that we behaved in certain ways, and there was a different world, black and white world. If we walked down the sidewalk and a white man was coming toward us, we had to look down upon the ground. And if a white woman walked down that same sidewalk, we would have to walk out in the street. Couldn't walk down the same sidewalk. We couldn't ride in the front of the buses. We couldn't use certain facilities, restrooms, and different things around town. If we wanted to go and buy a pair of shoes or clothing, they could only hold the shoe up. We couldn't try them on. We couldn't try on a cap. I mean, imagine you're living in a society somewhere where blacks and white cannot even talk to each other, cannot work together, and all of a sudden someone come to help you, someone who's white, and he treats you like a human. And naturally, we just bonded.
They just bonded. But what about racial discrimination in today's society? With education comes the possibility of a better future. And in today's society, there has been, unfortunately, times where colleges have just made it that much more difficult for certain minority groups to get accepted into the colleges they want to go to merely because of race. There's even been many individuals who have had to face job discrimination where they are removed from their job solely because of their race. And there's even been healthcare institutions that have a complex navigation process that is making it more difficult for minority groups that are in poverty to circumnavigate the healthcare system with the proper resources that they need. And additionally, for statistics in today's world, it has been found that it is 2 more times probable for black children to commit suicide than white children. Imagine that. Similar results can be found in other minority group children as well. Studies report that depression and hypertension are more common in discriminated minorities. Many individuals who are subject to racism are even more likely to have trouble sleeping at night, and intimidation and physical assault are all but more too common for minorities on a day-to-day basis. And surveyed black adults have testified to being perceived as dishonest and even less intelligent than others. Marley Diaz puts it best when she talks about institutional racism in today's society. Let's look at what she has to say.
Hi, I'm Marley Diaz. I'm 11 years old. A lot of grown-ups think that opportunities exist for all kids, and all we need to do is apply ourselves. But I know that's just not true. It shouldn't matter if you live in the city or suburbs, on a farm or a reservation, or what your zip code may be. But it does. There's still rules to keep our schools separate and unequal. Why? We spend a lot of time talking about whether what someone says or does is racist, but that's not enough. You not liking me for the color of my skin is not the only thing that can affect my chances for success. I'm talking about the built-in barriers that keep me and other kids from reaching our full potential. It's all around us. We might not recognize it, even when it's right under our noses. Like, remember that time I had to start a campaign just to get books in my library about kids who look like me? Do you care enough to look closer, to talk to each other, to your students, to your communities? We've got to change the dialogue, because when we do, you'll be amazed by all we can accomplish. I'm looking at you.
Now, you might be wondering what are some proposed solutions that can help fix this problem. Well, there are many different methods and ways that we can try to counter racial discrimination. And while some of these solutions might not help immediately, they'll help in the long run. A good way to start is by working together with people of different races and learning more about each other. This will allow people to forget about the difference in race as they'll be working together on the same task. According to research, it's proven that diverse groups working together perform better results since they help each other realize their bias towards certain groups or races. Some surveys also show that even people themselves believe working together with other groups helped. We should also start having more racial diversity in the government. This will help allow there to be more representation for the minority groups, and it will mean that there will be more laws that are fair for everyone. The pie chart below shows a percentage of people in the government, and as you can see, Latin, Asian, Native American, and African Americans all barely make up 24% of the government, and that's why we need to have more minority groups in the government so that everyone can get a fair chance.
Gunvir and I have also learned that another good way to fight racial discrimination is to show active support to groups and campaigns that are making progress against racial discrimination real. And yes, studies have shown that the public has shown so much support in the efficiency of these groups. However, there are those that believe that the difference between us shouldn't be of any merit, but the truth is that becoming colorblind to race can actually help contribute to racism and evolve into racial discrimination. Instead, research shows that celebrating everyone's race is a much more effective solution than simply becoming numb and neglecting everyone's race. One discrimination is an insult to the other. And while institutional changes, government involvement, and dynamic economical planning are important to stop racial discrimination, true change can simply start within the individual. And by taking the time to notice the discrimination that we are all subject to, simply treating others with respect can do so much.
Thank you for watching.